Just a few days ago, I started a new job, and it is the same job I got when I first came to Spain. Same hours, same pay, same routine, and the exact thing that I really never wanted to go back to. And I'm not bitter. And it's not because I'm not pretending that I'm upset, and it's not because I've made peace with it, but it's because having a good attitude when life doesn't go your way isn't passive acceptance. I think it's an active decision. Because at the end of the day, movement is what changes your circumstances, not waiting for an ideal outcome to arrive. And today's episode, I really want to show you what I mean by that. Because first off, welcome back to Get In, You Are Driving. I am filming this August 15th. I had 1 week at this new job, and I actually released an essay, and I wrote the essay the day that I started the job because I really wanted to encapsulate all the complicated emotions that I was feeling. But welcome back to Get In, You Are Driving. I can't believe it's mid-August. Wow, so many things have changed. But I want to really talk about this good attitude bit because when I accepted the job, I felt like there was this voice in my brain saying, all right, you didn't get what you want, but have a good attitude anyway. And that's really what I want today's message to be about. So when I say have a good attitude, I don't mean you're fake happy. I don't mean you just accept and you're like what it is and what it is. Having a good attitude for me is making an active decision to keep on moving, to be positive and to be hopeful for the future, even though today isn't what you wanted. And I don't think that's toxic positivity in the slightest because you're not pretending, right? Like, I'm not pretending that I'm not upset. I'm not pretending that I'm going to need to make more money soon and this is like a shift job. Like, I'm not pretending, but I'm also not going to act like this is the end of the world. I think we may hear this and be like, well, you're pretending that everything's okay. You're smiling through it, blah, 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 blah. Because I think I also used to be very much so of that belief. But you just have to keep on moving forward. But one thing that I think I learned this time, and I'm still learning this, is allowing myself to not be happy as well, but not allowing that to overshadow still living in my present and enjoying my life. Because something that's been hard about getting this job is having to like hear everyone's comments on it that I haven't really asked for, but at the same time, I've had to update people on what I'm doing. And also, I think feeling like people that I perceive that have had it easier than me telling me, well, everything will be okay, it'll all be fine. You know, like when my friends were telling me that, I was coming home like annoyed, upset, like I really meant what I said in the very beginning. This isn't something that I wanted. But I keep thinking, but what is my alternative to really do? What control do I really have over this? And not that much. I really only have control of my attitude. So how I got here was I have already talked about how I no longer wanted to be a part of the family business I was in. That was my decision. I take full responsibility over that. And I kind of wondered if maybe I would have to take some step backwards before I could take them forwards. And the thing is, I was not working for about 5 months total. And 4 of those months, I really needed it. I needed to just heal. I needed to be with myself. I needed to listen to my inner voice. I needed everybody to go blank. I needed to not hear what anyone had to say. And that was really good for me. But then what ended up happening during that was it was really cool because I got to conduct an experiment about How was I going to move through the world having this cushion of time to sit on? And what I noticed was I'm super determined to get to where I want to go and I have my goals, but I have no idea exactly how my goals will come into fruition, what I will want, what will need to happen. So March was me rearranging my life. April was me getting into a new routine and working on the projects that I had created, courses that I bought that I wanted to do. And April, May, and most of June were just lots of movement. Like they really were lots of movement, trial and error. Okay, I like this. I don't like this. But then end of June, I was just feeling really stuck. I was feeling really confused. I was feeling like, okay, now I have way too much time on my hands. I don't know what to do with it. I was feeling like there's only so much thinking you can do because I was really noticing by the end of June, my thoughts were so, they were just incessantly spiraling and I really desperately needed some type of certainty. I was thinking about how the money in my bank account was going down. And then when July hit, I was just paralyzed. My birthday was maybe one of the worst days because I spent it with my family. And at the end of that night, I called one of my best friends and I was like, I need to come see you. I can't be alone anymore. I don't know what to do. Like, I was just so paralyzed. And that was very weird for me because I really am somebody that has always naturally been able to move forward, been able to decently encourage myself. I really was like, what is my problem? Like, what is my deal? And I didn't know what to do with all this paralysis. And on the days that it was really, really, really bad and the crying was just uncontrollable, I kept going to the same scene in my mind of me being a little girl, me looking up at these super tacky neon stars that we had placed on the ceiling. And when we first did it, they glowed and they were really bright, but then they were there for a really long time. And after a few years, they only had this like greenish glow to them. But I remember I didn't want to take them off for a really long time. And I remember looking up at those stars every night. And all I wanted, my only wish, and what I imagined was I imagined myself as an adult and I imagined myself being able to take care of myself. That's all I wanted. And having left the company, having had now all this time to think, and really for the first time being fully on my own in every way with no support, accepting this job felt like such a failure. It just felt like that little girl that was crying in her room. This is the best I can give her, this part-time job that's very low paying. It's just all my fears, like that really was where my paralysis kept on taking me. Just this like heartbreak of I can't take care of that girl. And the adult in me was like, well, what can I do? Right? What can I do? I still want to do something about this. And I needed to move. I realized like, all right, I've had 5 months. I know what I care about. I still know what my long-term goals are. I still know what my skills are. Like I said, these 5 months have been so interesting because I really was able to see, okay, what is it that I really care about? What am I doing with my time? What has my behavior revealed to me? And it really showed me that my projects mean a lot to me and that when I care about something, I'm willing to put my full effort in. But, reality is also knocking, and none of those things are giving me money financially. And I had to, I don't know if the right word would be wake up because I've always known, like, I feel like I'm a decently realistic person, but I kept thinking, all right, Maria, you are so paralyzed. I couldn't apply to jobs. Like, really, when I came back after visiting my friend after that week of my birthday, this would have been what, about a month ago. I was like, I, whoa, what am I going to do? So, what ended up happening was I felt like I understood where this was coming from, the fear of not being able to take care of myself, like one of my deepest childhood wounds. And then I thought, what can I do right now? Like, what's one mini baby step? And I thought about, all right, when I first came here, I started teaching English. I know that that's something I'm good at. There's usually a high demand for it. Why don't I try that? And I remember it was immediate relief in my body. I was like, like immediate. Like for some reason, I couldn't apply to jobs on LinkedIn, but I could apply to those jobs. I was like, okay, interesting. And also, something that I've been trying to do here, I don't know if people would agree with this or not. I've been trying to be extremely objective with myself. Because, throughout all of these 5 months, there has been such a nagging voice of, you're so lazy. You're so spoiled. Look at you. You get to live off of your savings. How dare you? Like, you're just awful. But where the frick does that voice get you? Because also another voice in me was like, I have calculated my savings. I know that I can't do this forever. I know I don't want to use all of them doing this. I know that there are still things I want to work on. And again, the truth of the matter was, I have been working on all my stuff while this has been happening. It's just that it's very difficult to explain to people and even yourself what exactly it is you have been doing, because before anything happens, no one can see this work, right? So here I was doing all this and now being in this paralysis. And I thought it was very fascinating when I looked at myself objectively that I couldn't apply to these other random LinkedIn jobs, but I could apply to the teaching job. I was like, fascinating. So I was like, all right, again, I keep an objective eye on myself. So I had just had this idea on a Thursday. And then the next day I was going to the pool with my friend. And I told her, just yesterday I had the idea that maybe as a part-time thing and just to get some movement because I can't deal with this paralysis anymore. I'm sorry, there's like a hair in my eye. Whenever I wear my hair like this, one little hair. Okay. And she was like, oh, I think that's great. And wait, one of my like best friends works at this academy. I'll just text her. So I thought, oh, well, okay. She texted her. The friend texted me right away. She's like, oh, send me your CV. My boss actually is looking for somebody. And I was like, okay, I'll send it to you on Monday because I wanted to like fix a couple things on my CV before I sent it. Send it to her on Monday. By the next Friday, I heard from the academy and I went for an interview. And I thought, okay, that was fast. Went for the interview. I felt it went really well. He said, I'll let you know if you make it to the second round. Okay. Made it to the second round, had that interview Monday. And within a few days, because there still were other candidates, he was like, all right, the job is yours. And I just knew that I knew I have to take this job. But it's not what I wanted at all. And it wasn't that throughout these months I was like, I'll never go back to teaching. But it was more like my last resort, right? Like, oh, okay, if I have to. So again, I collected all this evidence about myself, but now I was just paralyzed. And now I was collecting this new evidence of why do I because it made me think about the voices in my head of you're so lazy and irresponsible. But then it's kind of like if you're objective, right? You're like, is this lazy and irresponsible? I went to the interviews. I gave it my best and now I'm getting a job. So this is why something that I'm still really sorting out through all this are this like fascination of voices in my head and what they really are and what they're really trying to achieve and how useless I think a lot of them are. So another reason, and this is something that I talk about a lot. It is one of the core pillars of this podcast. It's absolutely a core pillar of all my writing, is that I wasn't able to move anymore. I don't know why I became so paralyzed, but I just did. And I went back to what I always go back to. Maria, what's true? What's true in this moment in time with what you know right now? And all I knew was I'm not lying about this feeling of paralysis. It's real. But reality is I need to get a job. One, because I'm paralyzed. Two, because I need to stop draining my savings. Three, because I need something to do. And four, I just need to move. But I think what was hard was not allowing this now decision of getting this job to feel like a failure. Like I've just been struggling with so many feelings of like failure. And I guess that's why in my bad moments, I was going back to the little girl in my room. And something that was very interesting about when I asked myself, what feels true? You know, I was being sincerely honest with myself when teaching genuinely was the first idea that brought me relief. Like that wasn't a lie. There was some type of sense of alignment when that idea landed. You know, because again, I feel like when you're brutally honest, you know when you're BSing yourself because you're being lazy versus you're being honest about what you could really do. Because I think at the beginning of this 5 months, I was absolutely like, freelance, it's the only thing I'm going to do. I have to control my time. It has to be the way I want it to be. And then, you know, you realize as time goes like, well, maybe I was a little bit too rigid with my plan, right? And, you know, that's okay. And that's where I think that also something that I'm learning here is have humility, right? Like, I wasn't trying to be proud and annoying at the beginning of the 5 months when I wanted that. But also, I think I've just had to be honest with myself about my level of capacity right now. And I'm going to be honest. This is where I'm still doing this objective experiment on myself. I am the type of person that if I don't feel it's going to be beneficial for me, or if I don't have an intrinsic motivation to do it, I just won't do it. I just will. You couldn't pay me to even do it. Whereas then other things that I feel are worth it, I am so dedicated to them and I give them my best. And I'm the person that if there's something I really want to change in my life, I immediately figure out how to make it a part of my daily routine because I'm a firm believer that whatever you change daily will compound and that's when real change happens. And again, this was just so fascinating to me that why could I apply for this teaching job, but all the other jobs made me feel paralyzed? I'm still really sorting this out, so I don't have like an answer. But what it really did show me was, okay, be careful about like what you're listening to here. Now, I've been trying to have this conversation with myself a lot about failure because cognitively, I'm like, Maria, you didn't fail. You're actually being very honest. And this is back to what I was saying before, where I lost my point a little bit, went on a tangent. I apologize. Was I've had to have humility about what I can handle right now. And me going full-time freelance, I'm gonna be honest. I don't want to do that because I don't have the energy to look for clients. And when I was being really honest with myself, I just didn't. I was like, you know, I actually do need a little bit of certainty right now. I do need un trabajo fijo. Why am I translating in Spanish? I need a job that is like secure, right? That I know that, well, no job is secure, but you know what I mean? You know that you're going to be getting X amount of money monthly. And like when I was really honest with myself, I was like, because I had the idea of doing ghostwriting. I was like, I don't want to search for the clients. I don't want to do it. And again, that has been really hard to see because then another little voice is like, "Oh, so then you're lazy, right? You don't really want this." And as somebody who is a self-development person and like listens to all the self-development crap, that is a hole that is very easy to think because I feel like Alex Hormozy has said it a million times, like, "Well, if you're not putting in the work, you don't really want it." And this is one of the things that I've like thrown out into the ether, and I'm like, this is a fascinating concept. I don't know how true it is. And I think the only way to find out is to watch yourself over time. So again, this whole idea of having a good attitude, even though I didn't get what I want, I also had to be very honest about myself of, okay, Maria, you can sit here and complain, but the truth is you haven't fully wanted to go crazy about ghostwriting. You haven't fully wanted to go crazy about applying jobs. Like when those things were there and you could do them, you don't actually want to do them. You feel paralyzed. You don't want to do them. So the very like financial, proactive, logical voice in my mind was like, okay, sweetheart, you know you don't want to do these things and that's okay, but you gotta do something. Right? Like, it's so funny because there's just all these voices going on in your head. And I think it's because you have so many different desires. And my financial desires were like, okay, we get it. You don't want to do freelance. Now all of a sudden it feels too insecure. You don't want to put the effort in to do that. You must do something. And then the part of me that's trying to be gracious, that cares about like my dreams and my emotional life is like, okay, so then take this job and it'll just be for a short time. And again, it's really hard because you have like, I've been learning a lot to balance this like logical part of myself that needs to be listened to, but also not criticize myself and be a bully about not wanting to do it. Because, I kept thinking, what's my problem? Just do it. Just work at every hour, at every moment and do it and you'll get what you want eventually. But I just couldn't do that. And I had to be sympathetic with the version of me that didn't want to do that. So I know cognitively this was the best thing I did. But my emotions, how I feel, having to be honest with myself, having to accept this humbly is still something that I'm really having to figure this out because it's been really hard to understand that all these desires are colliding, right? Because I think right now, one of my biggest desires is just, making enough money financially that I'm comfortable. But then I don't feel like I'm doing absolutely everything behaviorally to make that happen. And I'm thinking, well, why is that? Then, because I also think that there's also been a very growing desire in me too of not wanting to be in a rush, not wanting to feel pressured, not wanting to live my life in constant anxiety and worrying and feeling like, well, my life will start and I'll be happy when I'm making money. And not just any money, like the amount of money I want. Like something that these 5 months really gave me and showed me is I am so tired of feeling rushed. I am so tired of thinking my life is going to start and I can only enjoy it when I'm skinnier or when I'm richer or when I meet somebody. Like, I've really learned you only have today. And I've never felt more myself in these last 5 months than in my entire life. I feel my best. I physically look my best. I just sense it so much in myself. And in these 5 months, even though I didn't make any money, I have overcome so many internal obstacles that were so deeply affecting how I moved through the world that if I didn't have these 5 months, I really don't know what my life would look like moving forward. But again, I think the hardest juggle has been these desires colliding. And then because I'm very big on like truth and alignment, I'm like, well, then what is the right decision? Accepting this June job, I keep thinking, has this been the right decision? But it's also like, Maria, maybe you can't obsess about the right decision and just make this the right decision and keep taking one step forward. And that's why I wanted this episode to be about having a good attitude anyway, because my mind keeps telling me you're a failure. These 5 months were a failure. But I also know, no, they weren't. You learned so much about who you are, what your skill set is. I can't even begin to tell you all the limiting beliefs that were exposed to me about how I felt about myself, my body, my life, how I move through the world, my anxiety, my convictions. Like something that this season has taught me, and I'm really trying to reframe my brain, is I built a lot in these 5 months. I have learned the difference between guilt, conviction. I've really been able to sort out what it is I value and not what the world values. Like, we really don't realize how much we're running on autopilot and how we value things that society says are valuable, our parents say are valuable, religion says are valuable. And this season really stripped me of that and was like, you have time to think. What's valuable to you? And then because I'm pretty good now at being objective with myself, I looked at my behavior. And I think what I've learned is what's valuable to me is living a life that feels aligned to me, living a life where I have time for people, living a life where I feel stress free. But then also, reality came knocking and was like, all right, well, you can't keep living off your savings because you can't use them all. And sometimes you have to do things in life you don't want. But again, my heart still is catching up. But I know this wasn't a waste of my time. I don't regret not having applied for jobs right away. I don't regret taking this English job. Since I started, I've already felt so much better. I'm exposed to people. I'm good at it. It's something that I like. And I just refuse to allow myself to have a bad attitude because, again, I really had to be honest with myself about, all right, Maria, you say you want money, you say you want these things, but it's not that your behavior is not reflecting that you can't do that, but you're also not working 12 hours a day to get those things. And this is going to be an ending where I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the right answer is here. I'm still really scared, if I'm being honest, to move forward because I think I'm going to have to conquer again. Like, my plan is to start applying to jobs probably within the next month again, because this is only a temporary fix that needed to get me out of my paralysis. You know, my whole life, I watched my dad complain about things he didn't like in his life. But I also watched my dad not do anything to change them. And I've been very aware of how I move through the world and how much of my dad is in me, because something that working with my family really showed me is just how much drama, just how much of our biology is inherited. And I see my dad a little bit in me, in these last few months. Like, I've worked really hard, but I've also noticed I've complained a little, but I haven't moved my butt as much as I could have. Or I don't know, maybe that's just how I feel right now because I didn't get what I wanted, but also it's been hard to know what exactly I want and what's right. But my whole point of bringing up my dad is that my dad pretty much always had a bad attitude. And that bad attitude really robbed him of life itself, and it really robbed him of his present. And one thing that I've been very aware of during this is, okay, this isn't what I want. Like right now in my life, I don't feel I have necessarily anything that I want from a material point of view, but I have a lot of other things. I have love, I have good friendships, I have health, I live in a city that I like. And what I learned from my dad is you only have today. And I don't want to be robbed of the very spirit of life itself. And a lot of life isn't getting what you want and is outcomes not being exactly what you thought they would be. And I've really studied and observed the people who keep on moving with a good attitude versus don't. And at the end of the day, the literal only thing you can control is your attitude. And that's why on my first day of work and all the rest of the days for however I work this job or continue working jobs I may not like, I will give it my best attitude. And this goes back to what I was saying in the intro. I am so disappointed and so sad that I had to go back to this, but I also know that having a good attitude and just taking many steps forward, I know there's a positive future coming. I know there is. And I want to have a good attitude about however that looks like. And I think that I am of the belief that if you give your best to what you're doing, if you have a good attitude, if you feel like you're doing deep down what you know to be doing is correct, it's only a matter of time that things will open up for you. Opportunities will make themselves manifest. And even though I have lived this and opportunities have happened to me, it's still been more on a small scale. But I really do believe in this sentiment. And I know that there still aren't guarantees, and I may not get exactly what I want, but I know that the way I want to live my life is I want to live it by having a good attitude every day and believing that there are better days, even when my current days feel awful. Because really, like, I'm really disappointed that I haven't been able to give that little girl what she's wanted. But I'll get there. And it's one step at a time. And if life has taught me one thing, it's that whatever spirit rules this world, that spirit cares a lot more about your character than your paycheck. And, yeah, life isn't always going to be what you want. You're not always going to get what you want, but have a good attitude anyway. And I am excited to share what I'll learn throughout this experience, but I just refuse to be upset. And I'm just going to focus on what's good. And I'm going to give this job my best. And I'm going to keep moving. And I'm going to see where life takes me. And what I really would like to resonate with you guys is the same thing. Allow life to make you better, not bitter. Thank you so much for listening. I really enjoyed recording this. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one.